Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. It's 1:30 and want to make sure to be conscious of all of your times. This is John Elam. I'm presenting today, or helping present today, the 30 on Thursday, Protiviti's 30 on Thursday. The topic is automating compliance and financial processes with Nintex. Thank you all very much for joining us. Next slide. Here's a little introduction. A 30 on Thursday series by Protiviti is a bi-weekly 30-minute SharePoint webinar series. We have a range of topics that we focus on. The next webinar, Getting the Most Out of OneNote in SharePoint, will be on February 12th from 1:30 to 2 p.m. They're all from 1:30 to 2 p.m., just sort of as a heads up for folks who are thinking, oh, what time might it be? And definitely check out the full schedule of events. We try to keep those updated well in advance. So that's sharepoint.protiviti.com/webinars. Today's session is being recorded. So if you have any interest in that, you can take a look at it. We'll be posting it on sharepoint.protiviti.com/archived webinars. You can also go back and see a lot of the old ones as well. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit them. Our presenter, Steve, will be getting back to them as quickly as he can. But we typically keep those questions to the end. Gives them a chance to focus on the presentation and then really get back to the questions. We do allocate some time specifically for that. So today's session overview, the topic is automating compliance and financial processes with Nintex. Steve Witt with Nintex is our presenter, and I'm the moderator here today. That's John Elam. I'm with Protiviti. So let's get started. Without further ado, Steve, let me just transfer it to you and get going.
Great. Thank you, John. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
All right. Let me go ahead and I think you might have to give me presenter rights. There we go. Perfect. Let me know when you can see my monitor.
I can see it now.
Perfect. You still seeing it?
Yep.
The automating compliance and financial processes with Nintex?
Yep, it's up there on the screen.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thanks again, John. Again, my name is Steve Witt. I am with Nintex. I'm the territory manager of the Mid-Atlantic region. Been working with SharePoint since it came out way back when. On all major versions, even way back in 2003, 2007, 2010, 2013, and doing a lot of stuff in the cloud. Prior to joining Nintex, I actually worked for Protiviti, and a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today builds on my experience as a SharePoint consultant, working within financial services, and specifically working with Nintex now that I work with Nintex directly. So. A little bit about Nintex, if you're not familiar, the world leader in workflow, and really workflow that is quick and easy to develop. We have thousands of customers worldwide, about 90 different countries. Our product is used, 22 different languages, and millions of end users. And our workflow and forms platform is really a very, what I'll say, horizontal solution, right? So workflow can apply to anything from employee onboarding to retail transaction operation management, case management, things like that. There's a whole swath of different processes that span organizations. We also find that workflow becomes very widespread in organizations that have compliance needs and are process-driven, like financial services. So we're going to talk about financial services today, and in particular, we're going to talk about the process challenges that you have with any business process, but again, primarily we're going to zero in on things that are compliance related and financial, kind of tie into the financial services. So, you have workers, information workers, compliance people, case management workers, and they span the organization, right? They're inside the firewall, they're on the move, they're everywhere, very distributed and very mobile. And then you have the processes, and these processes in the financial services world are What we're going to look at today is like pre-trade clearance. You have issue and complaint management. You have risk assessments. So those processes can be simple or sophisticated or somewhere in between. And the idea here is you typically have a lot of different processes that you need to automate. And ultimately, the content that is in those processes and used by those processes aren't always contained to SharePoint. They're in the cloud possibly. They are in others' back-end systems, if you will. And what Nintex actually does is tie this all together, bringing your people, your processes, and your content together in the context of the business processes that you need to implement to get your job done. So what we're going to look at today, and really what makes up the Nintex Workflow Automation Platform, is Nintex Workflow, which is going to be the focus of our discussion today. We're going to talk about forms a little bit because forms is really the interface and the touch points into your business processes. And dovetailing on forms is Nintex Mobile, which gives you the mobile views and allows you to work, whether you're on your iPhone or Android phone or Windows phone or tablet, allow you to interact with your workflow task as well as have access to all the forms that you would need as part of that business process. And we'll touch on a little bit on Nintex Live, which is our cloud-based service that allows for a lot of the integration that I mentioned. So with that, we'll go ahead and just jump right in. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in PowerPoint. I framed this conversation a little bit about us, what we're going to look at today. So, John, I'm going to ask for a quick conference since I'm switching from PowerPoint into my my SharePoint site. Just want to make sure you can see that okay?
I can.
Okay, great. So what I thought we'd do, since we have a limited amount of time today, is go through a financial services-based scenario around pre-trade clearance. So here I have a portal, basically a site collection within SharePoint. This is SharePoint 2013. And I built out on my team site here a couple of different lists that are going to manage my overall process, right? So I'm logged in as Eden Stafford. Eden Stafford an employee here at Nintex in our SharePoint site wants to come in and request trade authorization. So to do that, you just come into the trade authorization list and hit New. And we'll walk through this from the end user perspective, and then we'll go in and look at the design or look how easy it was to create this workflow. So I'm going to put in, I might just make up a number. API is the security that we want to trade, and if I had supporting documentation, I, of course, would add these as attachments. Now, you'll notice that this is a very simple form. We're going to look at how you can modify this with Nintex forms a little bit later if we have time. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Save. And the first thing you see happen is almost immediately we received a message that says your pre-trade clearance request, API, has been received and routed for approval. So one of the nice things about our product is it's easy to create notification messages, whether it be by email or link, that interact with your users and keep your workflow, people communicating what's going on within the given business process. So I know it happened kind of quick, but we've got a follow-up message here in link that says, this is an automated message, are you available to complete a task now? So I have, with lazy approval, which is something that we have available in our product, you don't always have to work with the task list in SharePoint and click Edit and then click OK and Approve. You can actually interact with link and email directly back to the system and allow the process to continue. So for something like this, where we're a very link-heavy organization because we're a Microsoft Gold ISV, so we love to use link. So in this case, I got a message that says, "Hey, are you available to complete a task now?" So I'm going to go ahead and type in yes. And then immediately after that yes response, and on the back end it was set up with what happens if it's a yes, what happens if it's a no. But immediately on the back end, I got another link message that says, "A task has been assigned to you regarding this item. It is Eden Stafford API with the date," and then I can respond to this. So let's take briefly a pause and talk about the three ways I can respond to workflow tasks with Nintex Workflow and Nintex Forms. The first is, and you've already seen lazy approval, but the other way is what I'll say is the traditional way. If you're using workflows in SharePoint today, you can click on a link, it'll open up a SharePoint page, and this page is typically optimized if you're using out-of-the-box SharePoint workflows, is optimized for SharePoint in a desktop browser, and then you come in here and you click Approve, and then you put in your comments and you click OK, and it'll go ahead and proceed. So that's one way. We talked about lazy approval already, and the third way is you can actually use Nintex Mobile. So Nintex Mobile is an application that you can download from any of the app stores. It's free. You can download it from the Windows Store, from iTunes, and from the Google Store. You authenticate to your SharePoint environment, and because our Nintex sits right on top of SharePoint, leverages all the great capabilities of SharePoint, in particular security, you get all the workflow tasks that are assigned to you, as well as you get all the forms that you have access to. So I'm not going to show the mobile app just because of time, but if I did, you would basically see that task show up in your task list. You would be able to click on it and respond right from your mobile device. And again, that can be a phone or a tablet, or even a Windows 8 desktop device like a Surface Pro 3. So I'm going to go ahead and click Approve. Actually, I'm going to go and do it via lazy approval, just so we can continue to show you how lazy approval. So I'm going to type in Approve. And I also need to provide comments. You see here on the form in the background that we have the ability to put in comments. And this is good to go. And lastly, I got a final link message. So I'm almost automating a chat function directly with link, but it's actually talking directly to my business process. It says your response has been recorded. This task is now complete. So let's come back to our site here, and we can get an idea of where our process is. So if I go in here and look at API, and look at the workflow history, we're going to see a very graphical, and this is what Nintex workflow actually looks like. It's a very graphical interface. You can see everything in green is what's been complete. So this was our interaction with the initial activities and then going through the pre-clearance. Now that we've done with that and we've got the information we needed, we're actually sending it to the manager for approval. So I'm going to jump over here into this other session I have. I'm going to go in and look at the email, and you'll see here I've got response required. So this is actually going to Eden's manager, in this case Brett Campbell. He's being assigned, and he's serving actually two roles that we'll look at in a second in this three-step approval process. And he can come in and click on it. And he has all three options available to him as well. So he can click like I'm doing here and respond in the browser and just type approve. He could use lazy approval, or he could use mobile as well. So we'll go ahead and just finish this up. We're going to click on this last task. And again, Brett's actually acting in two roles just to simplify this for demonstration purposes. Typically, these would be three different people, three different departments, so would have to review this clearance and approve it. And then OK. And you know, basically, I'm going to jump back into Eden's session here. I'll go back here. And what you see is, hello, Eden, trading in API is approved regards to trading team. So we know that our workflow is complete. Now, if I go ahead and refresh this view, you will see everything is green and that our workflow is indeed completed. Now, an important part of why you want to automate processes that have to do with compliance issues or anything, related to things that need to be audited. The nice thing about our product is it has to have its own discrete content database for storing all the workflow telemetry. So all of these different actions are stored, and if I go in here and look at the actual detailed view, you can see for audit purposes, we have all the different steps. We see who approved what and when. We have all the things that we would need if we needed to go through and say, all right, who approved trading on API or ATI or whatever we entered. We actually have the history, and you can control at a granular level what you want to track in here, using our workflow actions and our workflow designer, you can build in different gates and stages and write things back to this history list and then have that stored. So, auditing of these, the ability to create these processes as well as audit them is an important part of why we're seeing this being so heavily used in things like financials, in markets like financial services. Okay, so let's actually go in and look at this workflow. I'm going to go ahead and open up my workflow designer. So we've actually seen this view once already, right? We saw it in the context of while the workflow was running, we saw this. But now we're in the actual Nintex design interface. And the first thing you'll notice is it's all done in SharePoint, no separate client to install, all done in the web browser. And because our product installs right into SharePoint, it leverages a lot of the design patterns and interface that you see in SharePoint already. So it's really easy for users to jump in and get started right out of the gate. So in the ribbon, we control everything related to our workflow. So this is where you can publish the workflow. You can import and export workflows if you're moving them between environments. We can control our workflow settings. I'm going to open that up and talk about a couple of important things here. So in our workflow example, our pre-trade clearance example, we actually had our workflow scheduled to go off and kick off automatically, but you can actually control that here. And the way you can do that is when new items created, this is set to yes, it's automatically going to fire a workflow. So every time a new pre-trade clearance request is initiated, that workflow is going to kick off automatically. But we can also have that kicked off manually, or you can have it actually kicked off based on some conditional logic. So it gives you that granular control of, I want this workflow to run when this happens. It's not just automatic every time or not just manual every time. Okay, so on the left-hand side is, this is really the heart and soul of Nintex workflow. Is we have a toolbox of actions. So everything you do in building a business process with Nintex is done using actions. So actions, we give you about 120 out of the box, as well as there's different ways to get more, particularly Nintex Live, which is our cloud-based catalog. Today has about 145 additional actions that you can download and integrate with other, let's say, cloud-based systems like Salesforce.com or CRM Online. We provide that type of integration, and you can just download them from the app catalog. So to basically build the workflow, and again, our workflow is already built, but just to show you an idea of what you can do to build out your workflows, is you drag one of these actions from the left right onto the design canvas, and then you can start building out your workflow. So in our case, if you wanted to add an additional task up front, maybe we wanted to assign it to somebody else before it goes through the whole process, we can start to drag and drop actions onto our canvas, and now we're starting to build out our business process. Now you notice when we drag these out onto the design canvas, you see a little warning message. That means this action is not yet configured and the workflow cannot yet run. So we make it very easy. You double-click and say, all right, this is a Flexi Task. Flexi Task is one of the more common actions in Nintex workflow, just because you're assigning somebody something to do. So in order for that to be ready for publishing, we actually have to assign it to somebody. So I can come in here. I can look at people in Active Directory. I can look at people in the context of my SharePoint environment and my actual list. So here I know who the person kicking off the workflow is. I click Initiator. That means whoever basically filled out the form, they're going to actually get assigned the task, the first step in this process. In here, you have the ability to control all the different properties, and this is why we call it the Flexi Task. It's not just a task. It's a very flexible task form. So you put in the description of the task. You control the outcomes, the actual behavior of this task. A couple other things to highlight in here is the ability that once this task is assigned, you can control the behavior of this task over time, right? So you can actually send reminders, right? So something like a pre-trade clearance request, you might want that to be responded to within hours, not days. So you can set up reminders and say, I want to email a reminder or send a link message reminder every hour for 3 or 4 hours, and automatically have the workflow take care of nurturing that task until it's complete. The other thing you can do is escalations, right? So if something is not completed in a timely fashion, I can actually delegate this, and then you can delegate it up the chain to the person who received the original task. You can delegate it to its manager, and we're just leveraging all the properties right out of the user profile service in Active Directory to do that. The other thing I'll call your attention to is the fact that then you can actually modify the task form at these different stages along the way. Some of the solutions I built with Protiviti is when you're working on a compliance-based workflow and you're assigning things for people to do, you're oftentimes collecting data, right? Because different parts of the compliance process could be handled by different departments internally. So it may start over here with one form, and then it goes over here to finance to provide some, maybe it's the financial impact of a compliance fine, if you will, or a non-compliance issue. So finance has to actually determine the dollar amount, but when that's done, then it needs to go somewhere else for remediation and management. So what the different steps along the way, you want the power to build out the different interfaces that these different users would see, so that it's optimized for their experience. So that the person in finance can't edit the whole form; they can just see all the critical information, but then also provide the data they need to provide so that the workflow can continue. And with Nintex Forms, it's real easy to jump from the workflow product into the Forms product. It, much like workflow, is all done in the browser. It's all drag and drop and very easy to configure. So if I wanted to move things around, I want to shrink this box up, I can do that rather easily. One other thing to note here with Nintex Forms is not only can I design this form for the desktop view, I'll say the traditional view, right? If you're sitting at your desk or your laptop, you actually go into the SharePoint site in your web browser, but I can actually create the different views for our mobile devices, right? So I can create a smartphone view. I can create a tablet view that would show up, or a phone view that would show up in the native application that you would download from iTunes or from the Google Store. So I control all of that with the Forms product, and that, again, that creates that user interface that, that is the gateway into your business process. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I know we only have a couple minutes left, so I just want to walk through the other, just kind of show you this workflow that we ran so you get an idea of, you saw how quickly we're able to run through it here in a demo. In the real world, you probably have more steps and you maybe have some more things going on, but that's the beauty of the Nintex platform, is regardless if your process is easy or sophisticated, you can build it all out in a quick and easy manner without the need to write a lot of custom code, without the need to put it through the software development lifecycle. You can just build it out with our platform. So our process basically went through, we're using something called a state machine, right? This is what allows you the process to go back and forth between multiple states until it ultimately hits completion. So our process actually started with some initial activities. If you remember, that's when we got the we started with the link messages to Eden. That went through the pre-clearance information, basically to check to see if it was already on the restricted list. Now that it wasn't, basically assigned it over to Eden, and then assigned it out to Eden. In this case, was acting as the I believe the portfolio manager, and then it went to Brett, who was the operations trade authorization, and he was also the compliance department. So in this case, it actually created 3 parallel tasks, but you could also have these set up to work in a linear fashion. And then once all those were approved, it updated our list items, sent out the notification, and that was closed. And if we come back to our site again, we're using a couple of different SharePoint lists. Now that's all updated in like I say, fairly real time. Right, so here is our original trade authorization. We use some other lists in there as part of our solution. So if it was a restricted trade, it would be on this list, almost like a blacklist. So we looked up to make sure it wasn't on this list. We sent it out for approval. We used basically almost like a global approval matrix here, right? So basically, who is the compliance department, operations, portfolio manager? And we could have easily expanded this out. It's pretty common to do that because depending on maybe what market or industry a certain transaction is, might have to go to different people for approval. And then ultimately, once it's all done, we have a new list of all of our approved trades here at the bottom. So I know we have about 5 minutes left. I covered a lot of material really, really fast. So John, maybe I'll turn it back over to you and we'll answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Let me just pull up this presentation here. I will switch back to myself as the presenter. I will show my screen, and I will expand this for everyone. Right. So thank you again for everyone for hopping on for this 30-minute call. As I wanted to mention one quick thing, Nintex Week, we do a full week of training dedicated just to Nintex. It's 4 days long. The first 2 days are Nintex Workflow, then Nintex Advanced Workflow on the third day, and then Nintex Forms on the final day. Our next one that's coming up is really right around the corner on February 9th through 12th. That one's held in San Francisco and online. We're doing the final bids and seats for those who are coming on site. So if you're interested in that, definitely sign up here in the next 2 days or by the end of tomorrow for on-site. Otherwise, at that point, the on-site tickets will be all closed out and they'll still be available online. And then the next ones we've got coming up after that are Washington, D.C. On March 9th through 12th and Chicago on March 30th through April 2nd. And again, the first 2 days, they all run identical. They're all on-site and online, so you're accessible no matter where you are. And the first 2 days are just workflow, then advanced workflow, and then forms. So thank you all very much for questions. I'll leave this to Steve to answer any of the questions that might have come through. You can reach out to me directly. I'm, again, John Elam. My direct line, 571-382-7289, and you can find my email address there on the screen. If you have any questions, love to hear from you. Thanks again for coming out, and I'll go back to Steve.
Hey, John. I don't see the question window, so because I'm only set up as a panelist, not an organizer. So if there are any questions, you might have to read them to me. John?
Sorry about that, Steve. It looks like we're all good. All the questions thus far that have come through, people have said that you answered later on. So we should be good on that front, so I appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you, and thank you, everybody, for attending. And if you have any questions, my contact information is on the screen, or you can reach out to John and the folks at Protiviti.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. I'll be ending the webinar here a minute early, and let us know if you have any questions.
Sounds great. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Steve.